Why do I think that a run-of-the-mill manipulator is more dangerous than a murderous psychopath like Chris? And it boils down to your likelihood of encountering one in real life. Someone like Chris is very rare. It's very unlikely to encounter him, even if his impact is severe, right? If you encounter him and you're the wrong person, he'll murder you. But I think that people like Nicole are much more dangerous because A, they're more common. Manipulators are a dime a dozen, so you're more likely to encounter them. And the impact they have, while not life and death, right, while not severe, can still be significant. For example, if Chris hadn't murdered his family and simply just divorced Shanann, Nicole would have wrecked their home, right? That's not necessarily illegal, but it would have had a severe impact on their life. Are manipulators like Nichol Kessinger more dangerous than murderers like Chris Watts? My personal opinion might surprise you, but I think by the end of this video, we will all agree. Today, we'll watch part of Nicole's interview with Agent Kobach, focusing on Nicole's involvement in the crime. This video is part of my Nichol Kessinger Chris Watts playlist, which you can find in the description. Without further ado, let's listen.
Really, so I don't know if it was Saturday that he had told me that he was going to go that birthday or like Friday. I just remember he was like, I got to go to this birthday party.
Okay.
With my kids.
Any other conversation that makes sense?
I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm really tired, so I know there are certain things that I need to tell you guys that we'll get to as these days progress.
Yep.
But in all honesty, if it doesn't stand out to me now,
Today?
it probably wasn't relevant.
What about that 9 o'clock thing you were telling me on Monday?
Oh, that he told me? Oh yeah, well we'll get there. We'll get there. We're still on Sunday.
So we're
night.
on Sunday.
We're
gonna get to.
This is gonna be a long.
We're gonna get there to Monday. We're getting there. So Sunday night or Sunday during the day, you had your own personal stuff going on with your family. You never see him on Sunday. Is that accurate?
No, I didn't see him. What did I do the rest of the day? I came home. I think I might have just chilled at my house. I don't remember. I think I cleaned my house. I don't know. I didn't see him though.
Okay.
Sunday is the day before Chris Watts murdered his entire family. So pinning down what Nicole did that day as, her personal timeline is important because A, if she's innocent, it helps exonerate her. But also if she was involved, it would help prove that. And when Kobach asks Nicole what she did on Sunday, we get lots of reticence, vague answers, and we get what's known as negation, where she tells us what she didn't do and that she can't remember. And negation is a great sign of deception. So it can come in 3 types. You can get objection phrases, where if you say, were you at home on Sunday? Or did you help Chris on Sunday? And someone objects, well, I could never do something like that. How could I help someone murder his family? Or I had no idea he was going to do that. So instead of answering, someone evades giving you a direct response by objecting. The second is when someone gives you an I can't phrase. So what did you do on Sunday? I can't say for sure, or I can't really tell you, or I can't off the top of my head. So they tell you what they can't do. Why can't they do it? Maybe because it would expose them to jail time or because it would incriminate them. So they're honest when they say, I can't. And then the third type of negation is a non-reflective denial. So when someone just says offhanded, well, I can't remember, or I can't recall it, or I can't really think of it right now, like Nicole's doing here. This is the day before your boyfriend murdered his entire family. I would expect you to reflect at least a little bit about what you did that day. It was less than a week ago. I would expect you to, if you're innocent, be thinking of your alibi. What did I do that day and how can I prove it? If I was watching Netflix, here's my Netflix record, right? I would be thinking of ways to exonerate myself. That's typically what innocent people do. So the fact that Nicole is cagey about what she did the day before Chris Watts killed his entire family is suspicious. Does it mean that she helped him plan it? or commit it or cover it up? No, not necessarily.
Okay. And
Yeah, Saturday was the last time I saw him.
okay. Sunday, you're at home. You talk to him from. We know you have a conversation in the late evening hours, and then you go to sleep on Sunday night. When's the next time you talk with Chris?
Probably Monday morning.
Do you know what time?
No, I mean, so we used to like randomly text each other like throughout the day, but we both get really busy. So some days like I don't hear a lot from him, and some days I don't text him until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I'm just like busy. And I remember I didn't hear a lot from him that day, which was like that's not out of the normal for either one of us during the day. But at one point, I do remember he like texted me and he's like, "Oh, it's been a really busy day," and then like said some other stuff, which I'm sure you will find in my text. What he said, I don't know. It wasn't obviously anything that was like alerting to me. But that's what I'm saying. Like at this point, like I remember really key things, but if it's like a conversation that I'm like, I don't remember exactly what was discussed, it's because it was probably just bullshit, like just talking to each other. Yeah.
Small talk stuff.
Yeah. But I remember he was busy that day, and we didn't talk that much. And then I clocked out at 3 is what my time card says. That's what I was showing Mark the other day. And
See, on Monday, she did think of her time card and ways to prove where she was. Sunday, though, she shows zero reflection about that. Why is that? Why is she reticent about it? There's many reasons why people might be reticent. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're murderers. Maybe she was filming a nude video of herself to send to Chris and she's embarrassed about it. And she doesn't want to give it up unless she has to turn that over to the police to prove that she's not involved. So we can't read too much into it, but it is very suspicious. And like I've said throughout this series, the fact that Nicole deleted all of her text messages before coming forward to the police means that she's forfeited her right to the benefit of the doubt. So we will look at her much more suspiciously and skeptically than we would if she had been fully candid and cooperative.
I got home to go meet my buddy. One of my good friends was coming over to my house, and he actually has a key to my house, so he was actually there when I got there. And
Who's that?
my friend Jim. And so Jim came over, and I got home. He was there. He had like just walked in the door, and I remember like briefly after he got there, I checked my texts. I mean, briefly after I met up with Jim, I like glanced at my texts, and Chris said something about like my family's not home, or like my wife and kids aren't home, like something to that effect. And I told Mark, because he asked me for a time, and I don't have an exact time, but I remember it was like right after I walked.
That was a text message, though.
Another curious thing about all this is that Chris killed his family on the same day that Nicole had Jim coming into town, right? Another man, potentially another suitor, someone that Chris was jealous of, and potentially that's someone Nicole was using to make Chris jealous. Because if my theory is correct, Nicole gave Chris the ultimatum to put his house on the market right before he killed his family. So even if she didn't necessarily help him plan the murder, she was piling on the stress, for him at least, right, in his deranged mind to do something dramatic to his family. And I think all Nicole suspected he would do is, like I said in another video, shit or get off the pot, right? Leave your wife and get with me, or don't. And she was packing on pressure onto him, like, you need to list your house on the market by Monday. You need to tell your wife about me by Monday. I have this guy coming on Monday, so if you and I aren't an item, who knows what I might do with him. So I think she used lots of manipulative push and pull with Chris to get him to leave his wife. But because he's a psychopath, or he's just totally deranged, I'm not a clinician, so I can't diagnose him. He interpreted all that as, I need to permanently get rid of my family. my children, the unborn baby. And like I've said since the beginning, I don't think Nicole anticipated what Chris would do, but I do think that she applied a lot of pressure to him to make a decision. And I think that she uses very manipulative tactics to push people around, to con people, like we've seen her do with Kobach throughout this interview, where she danced around the phone, what other apps they used, where she danced around what they spoke about at the Lazy Dog, and plenty of other examples I've given so far in this series. And it's her proclivity for manipulation that we'll get into in this video that I think makes people like her potentially more dangerous than murderers like Chris Watts. And that might sound crazy right now, but once I explain it, I think we'll all be in agreement. So let's keep listening.
Yeah, it's in a text, and it's like, it was like briefly after I walked in the door, so based off how long it takes me to get home from work and when I clocked out, it's probably about 3:45 p.m. Texts me and tells me that. And like, he knows when I get off of work too, so he doesn't always bug me if I'm busy. So I don't know what's up with that, but that's when he sends that to me. And
so you're saying that he would have known that you would have had your phone available to you and not been at work when he sent you that text message?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
So looking back at it, you think it was purposefully sent at that time?
I'm sure.
I'm just asking your feeling on that.
Yes, and then he said, "Call me when you can." And I was
There was
like,
no other communication between you and him that morning, on Monday morning?
well,
at all?
there was, but it was like random, like
But nothing about this event?
no.
About like my wife's missing or
No.
anything?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
And you knew he wasn't coming to the office because he had told you that Sunday night.
Yeah, and then he goes, and so like they're only in the office for the morning. Like
Right.
some days it's longer than others, but I would say by a maximum of 7:30 every single morning they're all gone, and they don't come back unless they have like a meeting or something that they have to attend. So like not seeing him for the rest of the day is not like an unnormal thing.
Okay.
Like, but like I'm saying, like we don't really. The only reason we interact was kind of like by an off chance thing. Like I don't work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he, we talked like randomly throughout the day, but it was really sporadic, and he seemed pretty busy, so we didn't talk too much. Like I said, didn't put too much thought into it. It happens all the time. Waited till about 3:45, then sent that text to me, and yes, he does know that I will be home at that point. Or getting home.
Did you give Mark Jim's information?
No, I would really not like to involve him in this.
Okay.
He does not know about this. He doesn't know any of this is occurring.
Okay.
Like I was
So
literally
he knows certainly through the media that something's occurred.
yeah, he's
with
like
Chris.
out of town. He's probably has
Okay.
no idea. He doesn't know
Okay.
who Chris is. Like he's not. I do not know.
So he's just a friend of yours
yes.
um,
He does
that
not
was
need to be
coming to
dragged
your
into this.
apartment and doesn't know anything about Chris. Does he know anything about
No,
Chris? Okay.
nothing. Absolutely
And we've
not.
known Jim for
Yeah.
years and years.
It is interesting, the timing of Jim's appearance the same day that Chris kills his family. I wonder, like I said, I know very little about this case outside of what I've seen in this interview so far. Was Nicole using Jim as a tool to manipulate Chris, to get him jealous, to get him envious, to rile him up enough to leave his wife? Well, if you're not going to be with me, I've got plenty of suitors, Chris. I have Jim flying down right now. He's going to be sleeping at my house tonight. So if I don't see your house on Zillow by the morning, and I don't see your wife's wedding ring off her finger so you can show it to me and show that she threw it away, well, then I'll just stick with Jim. Have fun with your wife.
Years.
You're not dating him or anything like that.
No,
It's just a
he's
friend.
like one of my very good friends. Like my dad knows him. He's a great guy. He works out of state a lot, so when he's in town, we hang out. But when he's in town and he's off of work to save time, so I give him the key to my house. One, because I trust him and he's one of my best friends, and two, because sometimes he will just meet me there. Because I'll be like, hey, I'm getting off of work, and then if I get stuck in traffic or something, he ends up like sitting outside of my apartment waiting for me to get off of work. So I'm like, here's the key, and like my dog loves him and stuff. So no, he's not.
So he's just
involved
family
with
friend.
Yes, I don't. Even
The only
know
reason
if
I
I'm
ask,
dragged into this.
and I'm not really concerned about your location. I think we already have your cell phone records. At some point, did Mark ask you to supply? Did they ask for consent to get cell phone records? That'll probably be done by warrant. If we
Isn't
wanted,
that what you just did?
nope. What I'm talking about is your movement
Oh.
by GPS or by cell phone tower to show where you were. Obviously, and I don't want to cause you concern, we want to know where you were that day too. You're dating a man who did some egregious stuff, and we want to show that you were never near him that day. Period.
I mean, you guys can track my
No,
stuff.
yeah, I mean that was something we will have to get a warrant for anyways. I'm just saying if we asked for it, would you have any objections to that?
No, you can have it.
So
I'm a pretty boring person.
Well, it sounds like you just went to work that day and then you came home and you were there at 3:45.
Yeah, like
on
give
Monday.
or take like 5 minutes.
Whatever.
But yeah, so 3:45. I meet Jim there. Yeah, I was.
And
totally
so
there.
Jim is understand from an investigative point, he could be a person who could say, yeah, I was there at 3:45. He doesn't know Chris. He doesn't know anything. He could say with one phone call, yeah, she came in at 3:45. Done.
Totally.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't have to ask anything more than, hi, Chris, my name's Kevin. Or Jim. And I'm not saying you have to give it to
Just leave Jim
But
alone.
if
Jim does
at
not
some
need to be wrapped
point-
up in this.
if at some point I needed Jim's info to, let's say we couldn't find your phone records, would you
You
tell me
can
who
have
Jim
them.
is?
I will give them to you.
Would you tell me who Jim was if I
If
couldn't
you
get it?
had to.
Okay.
I don't really want to
Great.
involve him in this. That was not
Perfect.
fair to him. That's not.
Now we're starting to see a little bit more of Nicole's true colors, where she's interrupting, pouting, being moody, acting like a petulant child. Remember, this is 3 days after her boyfriend murdered his entire family, including an unborn baby. And she's getting petulant over them wanting to question a guy who could corroborate her alibi on the day of the murders.
No, if I do not have to do that.
That's fine.
Yeah, so anyways, Chris was like, call me.
And this is the 3:45 text.
Yeah, he sent me like a few. I think there was 3 of them, and I don't remember what the other one said, but something about like, yeah, my family's gone, or I don't remember verbatim, but call me when you can, or call me when you have a chance, something to that effect. And so when he told me call me, I was like kind of alerted, where I was like, okay, what's going on, you know? But first when he told me like his family was like not home, that didn't really seem odd to me that his family wasn't home. It was really vague. I'm like, okay, like, are they at the grocery store? Like, elaborate. And so, you know, and then, but he says, call me like it's like an emergency, but then just says that they're not there. And so I'm like really like floored by that. Well, not like floored, but just kind of like, he says, call me, so I'm concerned. And then he's really vague. So I'm like, maybe he just wants to talk to me. I don't know. I think it took me a little while to like really.
If you're watching this, you can see the patronizing things she does. So where Chris says, call me, if he gives her an order, an instruction, she gets very patronizing. Elaborate, right? Her eyebrows raised, almost like a teacher talking to a kid who has given an instruction to the teacher, right? That she's bemused by it. And we see lots of people on my channel who do this, like Jada Pinkett Smith or Ruby Frankie, where they treat people as lesser than in order to humiliate them and humble them. And I don't know whether or not Nicole is a sadist, but she is definitely a manipulator. And she's very good at it, right? She's handling her dad on one side, she's handling the officer on the other side, and she clearly spoke to Chris in a way where she was humbling him and controlling him to a certain degree. And I'm going to elaborate on that theme in a minute here. But let's just listen to a little bit more and see if we can pick up a couple more tactics that she uses to manipulate and some more examples of where her true colors bleed through.
really process the severity of the situation, just because this is not something that you expect to see every day, and the way that he talked to me made me believe that this is not what was going on at all.
Okay, so you make a phone call to him and you guys have a conversation.
I did. I stepped outside.
This is 3:45.
Ish. I mean, well, like, I think I actually interacted with Jim for, like, probably a good 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, he's my guest. He's in my house. So I don't think I called him right away. But, like, I mean, I'm trying to balance the fact that I have my friend here and then Chris is saying that something needs to be addressed. But to me, it didn't sound like an emergency. I mean, it's all the time. Like, people aren't home right now. You know, so it just... It wasn't like, oh my God, I have to take this call.
It didn't register as being critical.
No. I mean, it was the way he said it. And I was like, okay. So I remember hanging out with Jim for a while, and then I stepped outside, and I made a call, like, out on my back patio. And I called him. And he didn't answer the phone. And then he texted me back. Or no, did he answer the phone? I don't remember. I think he missed my call, and then he called me back. Or he just answered. Either way, it was a very short talk to him where he was just like, I have to go. The cops are here. And I don't remember if he said that on the phone or over text.
That's okay.
I'm so tired.
That's fine. You don't
But
need
either
the
way,
different,
like,
it's
the
just
cops,
the context.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will figure it out. The cops are here. And I'm just like, all right. And then I remember we were we were texting, but I was like hanging out with my company. So it wasn't like a nonstop text. It was just kind of like I would check my phone every once in a while and we would communicate with each other. And he was just saying like they weren't there and that her friend Nikki was there and that her friend Nikki had called the cops. And I'm like, why would this girl call the cops? Yeah, and like, I honestly do not remember the order of operations on all of this, but I'm pretty sure the majority of our conversation that night until my friend Jim left the house, which was probably pretty late, I don't even know what time, like 9 or 10, was all via text. So you should have this via text. Like,
Okay.
I don't think we started talking again on the phone until, like, after my company left. And he was like,
If Jim was there on Sunday, that might be part of the reason we detected so much reticence when Nicole was asked about what she did on Sunday evening. So during the day, she said that she was at the museum with her family, but then in the evening, she got very vague, like maybe I watched Netflix. And this could be an explanation why. Instead of just watching Netflix, maybe it was Netflix and chill with Jim, and she doesn't want to seem promiscuous to the police. Or if she can avoid it, not disclose all that to Jim, because maybe Jim really doesn't know about Chris. Or is she just concerned about how she'll be perceived because she has already seen some media writing about this case in the newspaper and she doesn't want it all to get out about her. So the fact is that just because we detect deception does not mean the person is guilty. And by guilty, I mean in the legal sense of the word, that they committed a crime. They could be guilty in that they tried to push someone into doing something, or they're just a bad person, right? Like maybe she teased Chris about his wife, or came up with hypotheticals about how he should get rid of his wife, or they joked about it. But none of that is actually illegal, right? It doesn't mean you're guilty.
I don't know, he just started like giving me details about stuff, and I don't remember what order, but he was saying like,
And in fact, this is probably one of the most important cards from the deception deck, so I'll just read it to you here. Why do people lie? If you're not familiar, the deception deck is my 52 favorite rules for spotting lies and manipulation. And this is the card on assessing why people lie. When analyzing statements, it's important to consider why the individual might be lying. There are numerous reasons beyond guilt. The first is protection. Could they be safeguarding something such as an investment, a relative, or their pride? 2. Avoidance. Are they attempting to evade negative outcomes like shame, jail, or retaliation? 3. Gain. Might they be seeking benefits, including attention, financial gain, or closure? And if you've seen my video on Sammy Smith, I believe her deception came from seeking attention. And other. Could they be influenced by other factors such as activism, psychological issues, or a simple mistake? This framework helps in understanding the diverse motivations that can drive individuals to lie and we need to apply it to Nicole, same as anyone else.
Nikki was really upset and that the cops were there and that they were like searching the house, and I was just like, what? You know, like what? Why? And he was telling me that they had like had a disagreement or something like that, and then he told me like she was gonna go to a friend's house, and I was like, okay, well, maybe she left, you know, maybe she just like went to her friends. And then I don't remember, but I think he was the one that told me that her cell phone and her purse were still there. I think he told me that.
He told you her cell phone and purse were still there?
I think he did. I don't remember.
What's the significance of that in your mind at that time?
At that point, I thought this woman was really trying to get out of this house.
Okay.
That's what I thought, because he said that they'd had a disagreement, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, I leave my cell phone at
When
home.
he said disagreement, what did he tell you what it was about, or?
Not at that point. Not at that point. So, again, like, you guys are going to have to check these texts, because it's all, like, my brain feels
That's
like
okay.
a mashed potato right now. But I remember him saying that, and I'm just thinking, like, well, maybe she was in a rush, you know? Like, maybe she was just like, I'm going to my friends. I'm leaving my cell phone here because I don't want you calling me. I don't want anyone else calling me. I mean, there are days where, like, when I'm outside of work, I will just shut my phone off. I just do it, and it's, like, my way of getting peace. So to me, I mean, like, it was weird that it wasn't even that weird to me that she left her phone just because I leave my phone, but it was weird to me that she left her purse. But knowing the fact that that girl was, like, always on her phone, then, yeah, I guess it is kind of odd.
Like, she lived on her phone, I think,
yeah.
pretty much, is my understanding of her and a phone. So, I don't know if you knew that
I did.
until prior to the media stuff or just from Chris.
I did.
So, did that strike you as odd? But you're thinking maybe she just left.
I just thought she needed to, like, get away from the situation. I mean, that didn't seem that awkward to me, that a couple that is going through separation would be like, I need to leave. I just need some space. Like, it didn't even, like, process. I was like, okay, like, give her some space, you know? And on that note, too, when he was we're going to jump back for just a second.
It's okay.
I had a thought. So when he was coming back from North Carolina, that was when he officially told me we're going to get a divorce and we're going to put the house up for sale. Like, he told me they were separating, and they were like...
So have you seen I think my first part of this series, or the second, I said that I believe Nicole gave Chris the ultimatum about putting his house for sale and leaving his wife while he was in North Carolina. That's why he came back, and all this stuff happened very quickly afterwards. And I think this is a great confirmation of that.
Gonna put the house up for sale, but they hadn't done it yet. And then when he got back from North Carolina, that was when he was like, it was like a sealed deal.
Okay.
And the reason that is of significance is because at some point over the weekend, I don't remember when, he told me that they were putting the house up. I don't know if it was they were putting it up on Monday, like the day they went missing, or if it was that they were calling the realtor to verify some stuff so they could put it up that week. Like, I don't quite remember. I just remember, like, the house was supposed to be, like, on the market, like, that week.
And I think that Nicole added to that pressure. I believe Chris was put on a timeline by Nicole, given an ultimatum. And because he's a coward, rather than confronting his wife or divorcing her or leaving her like an average normal human would do, because he is deranged, and I believe this is a sign of psychopathy. I personally think he's a psychopath, even though I can't diagnose him. I'm not a clinician. He decided the easier route was simply to execute his family. That way he doesn't need to worry about the third kid being born. He doesn't need to pay alimony. He doesn't need to pay child support. And he can just tell Nicole, yeah, she ran away with the kids. We can start our life together now. There's no loose ends to tie up that way. And that's typically how psychopaths think about people. They think of them as you're either helpful or you're disposable. And this is actually a good segue. So what is the most important takeaway from this video? Why do I think that a run-of-the-mill manipulator is more dangerous than a murderous psychopath like Chris? And it boils down to your likelihood of encountering one in real life. Someone like Chris is very rare. It's very unlikely to encounter him. even if his impact is severe, right? If you encounter him and you're the wrong person, he'll murder you. But I think that people like Nicole are much more dangerous because A, they're more common. Manipulators are a dime a dozen, so you're more likely to encounter them. And the impact they have, while not life and death, right, while not severe, can still be significant. For example, if Chris hadn't murdered his family and simply just divorced Shanann, Nicole would have wrecked their home, right? That's not necessarily illegal, but it would have had a severe impact on their life. And that's the other thing that makes the people in this likely significant category so dangerous and so concerning, and why so many of my videos are about people who fall into this segment of my risk matrix. Because what they do falls below the radar of the police very often. So they're able to get lots of reps in and get really good at what they do. Whereas someone like Chris snaps once, and it's so severe, it's immediately on the police's radar and he gets locked up for life. Someone like Nicole or a false accuser like Amber Heard, or a nonviolent sadist like Jada Pinkett Smith, or a low-level grifter like Liver King, they can all get away with it for a long time because they don't get locked up, right? It's not necessarily on the radar of the authorities. Let's keep watching.
Is that the
No.
company? You got the company name?
No, he never gave me that. He like gave me her name, and it was the same name twice. He gave it to me once when he was in North Carolina, and then once the other time. Because I remember asking, I was like, "Who's that?" Because he's like, "I'm gonna have to have her call so and so today and make sure everything's still good to go." And I was like, "Who's that?" He's like, "The realtor." It's like, "Oh." Or not today, but like
If it ever comes to your
Monday.
mind, just
Yeah, I
Give me a
doubt
voice
it. That
when
was
you
such
call.
a.
Yeah.
I will try. I don't
lots of
remember
names.
who it was.
It's fine. It's not that critical. That person may come forward to us anyways, perhaps. So don't worry about it. Let's go back to the phone calls on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, so he's like texting me a lot of this information, and I'm starting to kind of freak out. And it's not like I'm freaked out like, oh, she got murdered. I mean, that is not what I thought. It's like, okay, like the way I looked at this, like apparently his wife had been gone since midday, was when she got like reported missing. I didn't know that. Like the way I looked at this, it was, I got home from work just now. I mean, he didn't say that, but I interpreted, I just got home from work and my family is not here. So when we're texting for like a few hours, like the cop thing was kind of weird, but he's like, Nikki insisted they call the cops. Nikki insisted they call the cops. And I'm like, okay, and I'm just trying to figure out, well, like, what role does this woman play in this situation? Like, is she...
Did you know who she was?
No, I don't know any of his people. Like, this has been pretty, like, tight wrap for a while, which is probably a really good thing. But anyways, I didn't know, like, who she was. And so, like, I started asking him. I was like, well, where do you think your wife is at? And he's like, I think she'll be back tonight. Like, I think she's, like, out with somebody. And he was telling me that they had a disagreement. So I was like, well, I remember telling him, I was like, you should make sure that you have wait a minute. No. So all that happened. And then it starts getting kind of laid out. And I remember we talked for text for a while and part of this conversation, and then it moved to the phone. And I remember telling him, because he was like, I think she'll just be back tomorrow. I think she's just going to be gone for the night, like with a friend, And
Did
like,
he name the friend?
No, he didn't. And like, because I don't think, he made it sound like he didn't know like what friend's house she would be at. And I remember talking to him and I was like, well, maybe it's that Nikki girl. And he's like, well, Nikki called the cops, so why would she be at Nikki's house? I'm like, I don't know, kind of throws her off the trail of where she's at, And it's like, it sounds kind of weird, but it's like, he really made this sound like this woman was just like upset, left the house, and that was probably what he thought happened to her. And so I didn't really put too much like...
Did he tell you the kids were missing as well?
Yes,
with her?
I knew.
Okay.
I mean, which made sense to me because I was like, well, if you were at work all day... I mean, he didn't tell me he got home early. He didn't say that to me. So, I mean, it made sense. Like, if she's going to leave they should probably go with her. And so I don't know. I feel like I wish I should have like processed all of this earlier, but I just don't feel like when one of my friends is gone, I'm like, oh my God, they got murdered. We should address this. Like, I haven't heard from
It's not
them
a
in 4
typical
hours.
thought when somebody just checks out for a day.
No. So it got late at night, and like I remember telling him, I was like, he's like, I think she'll be back tomorrow, and he was gonna go into work, and I told him not to. I was like, you need to stay home, and you need to help the cops. I'm like, and you need to wait for her to come back. And he's like telling me like, well, what if like she comes back and she sees my truck? And I was like, you know what I would do? I was like, I would ask one of your good friends who's off of work tomorrow to come over this house and hang out with you while you're here. I was like, and go park your truck down the street. I was like, so she's upset at you and she wants to come back. I was like, but she doesn't want to be here if you're here maybe. I was like, if she comes back, I was like, and she doesn't see your truck, maybe she'd be more willing to come in the house. I'm like, you know, I'm like, but don't be alone with her. I was like, because if she's upset enough to leave, I was like, you don't know what kind of confrontation you're going to have when you get back in the house. And I was like, so that's why you should have a friend there so that you're not alone with her. And I was like, and if for some reason you are alone with her, I told him, I was like, I really thought she just left. I did. I was like, get your phone, put it on video, and put it in your pocket. And I was like, and just zip it up. And he's like, why? And I told him, I was like, because you can voice record. I was like, so if she comes home.
Notice the tone of the word she says, right? So I told him, I said. There's always instructing Chris. And I think that's because Chris is a weakling.
Home, I was like, and you two are still like, you know, if there's some choice words being said because you guys obviously got into like something this, you know, early
Did he
in the
ever
morning.
articulate what their argument was
He did,
about?
and I will get there. But, you know, I told him, like, just be prepared. You know, because at this point, like, it wasn't like I was, like, trying to make her to be a bad person. It was just, like, I didn't know what was going on. I assumed that she had left. So I was like, well, when you get back, because I...
Well, that's interesting. So Nicole says it wasn't like I was trying to make her to be a bad person. And now that I think back to everything she just said, that makes a lot of sense. Right? She might attack you. Have your phone on in your pocket. They're priming him to see his wife as violent, flying off the handle. So that's probably exactly what she was doing. And once again, these subtle slip-ups are what indicate to me that Nicole did not know for a fact what actually happened. I don't think she knew that Chris murdered his whole family. But she says herself that it was on the list of possibilities, though, in another segment we've analyzed. And I think that's the case. I think they joked about him killing his family. I think they probably maybe fantasized about it. But I don't think she actually took pen to paper and drew a diagram or helped him carry it out. And then whether or not she helped him hide the evidence after, that is still up for debate. Because she did delete all of her text messages with him. And depending on how aggressive a prosecutor wants to be, that could be accessory after the fact.
I knew that they were going through a divorce. It was like, just cover your bases, you know, try not to be alone. And if you are, just record what you guys are talking about. So, like, at the end of the day, like, nothing bad happens to you, you know? And, like, that was kind of how I processed that whole situation. And so he was like, all right. And then she didn't come home that night. That was Monday night, right? Yes.
We're talking about Monday.
Monday night, yes. And he told me this is what he told me they talked about, and I realized that this is like total bullshit, and I think he's telling you guys a different story. And I think the reason that he's telling me what he's telling, I think the story he's telling you is probably slightly more accurate than the one he told me on this case. And the reason is because I think he was trying to save his ass with the fact that she's pregnant. So he told me that she had asked him to wake her up before he left for work on Monday morning. And so I don't know if she did that on a text or how it was supposedly communicated. But But he said that he went to get her up, which I also found weird because, like, she's still sleeping when he leaves because she gets up with the kids and they get up shortly after that, but, like, it's just him in the mornings, you know. And so he said that she woke up and those two kind of just, like, got in a disagreement, and I don't know what all was said, but he was like, she was being pretty mean. And then he said, she told me that she's pregnant, and she told me that the kid is not mine. That is what he told me.
So she's pregnant.
All right, so this is interesting. And now we're getting into Chris's version of events relayed through Nicole. So we're coming up on an hour, so let's do this. If you want me to continue this series, let's get this video to 50,000 views. Please make sure to thumbs it up so YouTube actually shows it to new people. On your screen now is my video about Trevor Bauer, an MLB star whose life was ruined by a false accuser manipulator. It's one of my least watched videos, but personally I think it's one of my best and one of the scariest and saddest, so please give it a watch. Until next time, stay true.